Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a great pleasure for me to be invited in this exciting forum, Alzheimer Europe, and to talk about a beautiful project who involves 5 countries about how to detect patients or persons at risk to develop Alzheimer's disease. The name of our project is MOPIA, and MOPIA means Models of Patient Engagement for Alzheimer's Disease. It's an European project to move Alzheimer's disease towards an early diagnosis. Thank you very much, Jean-Georges, for inviting me and all the Alzheimer Association to be here and offer me this opportunity to update our project here in my city, the beautiful city, Barcelona. Well, the present focus in Alzheimer's disease is still on later clinical stage. That is really an unfortunately situation because when we are talking about Alzheimer's disease, the problem is the disease is run away for a long, long time, and we have not idea about the best time to do the diagnosis and to offer the opportunity to treat these patients. We need to move for the life, motto of the life, it's move for the most early diagnosis or the most clinical situation that the subject maybe is a risk to develop Alzheimer's disease. The current data about patients is under diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. One important thing to talk here in this, and for this audience, is to know that almost 50% of people suffering AD in Europe no reach the diagnosis. That is a great public health problem and an unbalanced situation if we compare Alzheimer's disease with another chronic disease or even with oncological disease. This situation creates a barriers to access symptomatic treatment. People is in the city, but people are not in the health centers. And also, if this population can reach this diagnosis, they can reach the option to be involved in the clinical trials as a novelty, as innovative treatment. This situation defrauds patients and defrauds their family because they detect that can take decisions timely. The most important thing now, the urgent situation in Europe is to take actions, to design actions, to be proactive for reach the earliest moment for the earliest diagnosis. MOPIAD, or the medical doctor who is involved in neurodegenerative disease, wants to change this paradigm from the late Alzheimer diagnosis to the early Alzheimer diagnosis. And what means to change this paradigm? I am here, late Alzheimer disease, and move from here that it's very early Alzheimer disease or as no prodromal disease of persons at risk of this diagnosis. The first idea is the public health system needs to understand that AD is a continuum from nothing to at all. And we need to take information and we need to have a good education, a good training for starting toward an incipient stage on Alzheimer's disease. For that, and in this, from that, and from 2000s, we need to incorporate in our diagnosis the biomarkers. And what is biomarking to incorporate in the clinical diagnosis for detect persons at risk? The most important thing, or the key point from the biomarkers, is the biomarkers detect previously to the person shows some very slight symptoms. Biomarkers detect if amyloidosis is present in the brain, and we use the most acknowledged or the most normalized biomarkers in the research is to detect beta amyloid in the brain using the PET amyloid, or to detect the levels of beta 4042 and p-tau, his neurodegeneration in the CSF using the lumbar puncture. Incorporate biomarkers and change our attitude and change our protocols, because we move from to detect the phenotype of Alzheimer's disease to move for etiological causality of Alzheimer's disease. All that, this changed the paradigm for the late and to early diagnosis disease, is focused on detecting early asymptomatic stage, prodromal AD and even asymptomatic AD, but always due to Alzheimer's disease. MOPIAT wants to better understand the obstacles to engagement for early diagnosis and treatment and establish successful strategies to overcome them. MOPIAT is focused, the background of the MOPIAT is focused in how means to detect my cognitive impairment. And I show here, I present here one article he's made, and it's developed in Fundación ACE, following a sample of 550 subjects with cognitive impairment, amnestic cognitive impairment. The name is probably cognitive impairment without biomarkers, and to understand what is the time event. Time event means in how time I need that my cognitive impairment progress to develop Alzheimer's disease. In this article, we detect that the cognitive decline in people with amnestic cognitive impairment is the major risk factor for developing Alzheimer's. In Fundación ACE, I was selected from amnestic cognitive impairment as probably cognitive impairment, following at least 5 years. We detecting that 50% of our population becomes Alzheimer's disease, change this diagnosis, converts from cognitive impairment to AD, 50% at the second years of the follow-up. If we compare our sample using or incorporating this sample the genetic factor like APOE, and compared our results with the results in the beautiful paper from Bosch that the group wants to show to the academic attendance how means to incorporate biomarkers and how to incorporate biomarkers to reach the rigor and robust diagnosis of cognitive impairment of persons at risk to converse cognitive impairment. We understand very well that if we have a very robust diagnosis focus on neuropsychologic and neurologic examination and follow up these patients, and later we incorporate biomarkers, at the time the results from one another it's the same. Nearly 90% of this population in 5 years converts to Alzheimer's disease. That means or that confirm that my cognitive impairment, focus in memory, is a great risk to develop Alzheimer's disease. And if we compare subjects with amnestic Alzheimer's disease, amnestic cognitive impairment, single domain, with amnestic cognitive impairment, multiple domain, as a possible, they are a difference of 5.5 times more of risk for one another. And based in this concept, to detect personal risks, focus in memory, and follow these patients for a long time, this is the key for the prediction, and that is the key who move Alzheimer's disease late diagnosis from Alzheimer's disease very early diagnosis. Let me know to talk about MOPIAT consortium and the MOPIAT background and the MOPIAT development. MOPIAT is an IMI grant. He's promoted by Innovative Medicine Initiative and FPA in Europe. And that you can see here, that is our consortium. It includes 5 countries, and with stakeholders he's working with us around Europe. MOPIAT is designed following the structures from IMI call, and they have one core, and the core is a clinical core, and is surrounded for another work package. He have different responsibilities. The work package 1 in green, as you can see here, is the work package who has the responsibility, which has the responsibility to manage and to follow and supervise all the project and to determine the times, the milestones, and the deliveries at time for to be sent these results to the Europe. The work package 4 here, it's one of the most important because work package 4 include some new technologies like big data in order to incorporate all the data, storage, to protect, analyze this data and promote and give the results. And in purple, the work package 5 have the responsibility to make and to do the diffusion, the information and the education about a MOPIAT program around the European countries. And let me now focus in the two clinical parts of the MOPIAT. Is based the clinical core of the MOPIAT. The most innovative in this program is named Work Package 2. Work Package 2 develop different scenarios, not different strategies in order to detect hidden subjects and risks in different sites or different locations around our society and around our public health. And Work Package 3 has the responsibility to make a good diagnosis, a phenotype, include the causality, etiology, and compare if the tools that we are using in the Work Package 2 for detect these persons and risks have the corresponding diagnosis in Work Package 3. MOPIAT is not a difficult project, because in the next slide I show you that it's a very easy, rational, and affordable project in any country about Europe. In blue, Work Package 2 is describing like a pre-screening of persons at risk, people at risk. And in the funnel, because MOPIAT is a funnel, it's working as a funnel, in the funnel, it's Work Package 3, and Work Package 3 is a typical normative screening process for make the best diagnosis of these people. Round two, Open House Initiative, is also focused in general population using neuropsychological tests in order to detect impairments in memory. The third one, round three, is based on the detection in the settle of PCPs or general practitioners, and we are modifying the tools to detect memory, because in round two is focused in neuropsychological tests, and here is focused in to detect neurovascular risk factors that we understand could be a risk factor to convert Alzheimer's disease in this special population. And finally, round four is focusing patients have the diagnosis of diabetes 2, and his focus in the settings of endocrinology in the tertiary hospitals, because it's another pool of population that is increased the cognitive decline in this population. A little more about to understand the deep or the interest in these 4 scenarios. All of these scenarios, all these 4 runs use 3 questions from the subjective cognitive decline, and use the MMSE is a principal and determinant tool included in each one, need 1 informed consent, and they have a little difference that I remarkable here. The run has it's completely different. For the face-to-face patients is the citizen science, and the citizen science here, if we need, of course, 1 informed consent to participate in, the tool is a part of the tools of CANTEP using the e-technology for detect these patients, these subjects. In Open House Initiative, the focus are in the free and Q test, and the tests who determine the level of anxiety of depression of the subjects. And the primary care campaign, the focus is in KD risk score. It determines the hypertension, diabetes, and body mass. That's the most important. And for the T2DM, diabetes type 2, the tool that we are include in this run is a very well-known battery, neuropsychological battery, or the screening battery used for diabetologists. The name is diabetes-specific dementia risk score. When we are detect people in each of the runs pass as delivery to the clinical sites in the different countries, the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, the BMC in Netherlands, University of Col in Colonia, the University of Ljubljana in Ljubljana, and Fundación ACE, of course, in Barcelona, to start the clinical diagnosis, the normative protocol for the clinical diagnosis, with a neurological assessment, with a neuropsychological assessment, in order to detect the optimal phenotype diagnosis. That includes 1 MRI, 1 structural MRI, including we can to analyze even though the volumetrical defects in these kind of the subjects, the blood test, and genetics. Our hypothesis here is that we can differentiate 3 types of subjects. Subjects who has dementia under that diagnosis, the subjects that our diagnosis will be mild cognitive impairment, and people and suggests he's no cognitive impairment. The second pass, the second step in the work package 3 is to detect the optimal etiological diagnosis. And that includes, of course, one biomarker. For MOPIAT, we are analyze the CSF biomarkers in order to detect amyloidosis and to detect the differences from tau or the relationship with beta tau. Using this biomarker, we are changing a little from the phenotype to the etiological diagnosis. We can confirm AD, some kind of dementia due to AD, of course. We can confirm, and that is really our deal, we can confirm my cognitive impairment due to AD, because that is the pool of the population with the greatest risk to converse Alzheimer's disease, and of course, the third but very interesting diagnosis is to detect subjective cognitive complaints that we are considered control. Our plan to work in MOPIAT is to finish to include patients at the end of May. We have time for analyze all this data and to produce the academics paper for the diffusion of our project and finish this project for diffusion for the citizens, stakeholders, public health systems, and everyone citizen to improve the knowledge about Alzheimer's disease and about how means my cognitive impairment as a risk to develop Alzheimer's disease at the end of 2019. Thank you very much, but before I must to thank my colleagues from Spain and the responsibilities from this project, Octavio Rodriguez, who is the leader of Work Package 2 and Work Package 3, Adrian Rodrigo, who is the leader for Work Package 4 from GMV, Andrea Ciudin, he's running and is the SAP investigation from Hospital Vall d'Hebron, Barcelona, and is the responsibility and leader of Round 4, and Annette Dumas, he's the coordinator from the HDDM Consulting and is the responsibility to the Work Package 5. And, of course, Laura Campo, who is the leader of MOPIA project, and all the participants and their families for their generosity to be involved in this beautiful and astonishing program. Thank you very much.